for procedures and what next in this session. So you are warmly welcome.
So, good afternoon, everybody. So, as your schedule shows, we are now moving to the roundtable discussion. So, I would like to invite all keynote speakers present to kindly come to the platform, ready to start our discussion. So Professor Mjema is moving up. Dr. Chereda, Professor Irimeli, please move to the platform. Yes. Dr. Olomi, Madam Magambo, and Mr. Michael Boma from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Dr. Candida, I'm sorry, from TBS. We still have one more participant, if he's around, Mr. Michael Boma from Ministry of Industry and Trade. So before we start our roundtable discussion, first of all, I would like to invite all the key participants in this roundtable. We have Madam Magambo just from my left, Professor Irimeli Mustalat from University of Eastern Finland, Professor Mjema, former rector of the College of Business Education, Dr. Birham Tereda from Ethiopia, Dr. Donna Dolo, trade. And the topic that will guide us is building an export-led African economy, strategies for competitiveness and industrialization. So I would like, first of all, to the participants that we shall be approaching this topic from our perspectives and also drawing some of our experiences from our presentations. But now, before we start, I would like to invite the IT staff to play a short video for us, and then we Comments.
The economy has been about its vast natural resources. But what if the continent's real wealth isn't what it digs from the ground, but what it can actually build? Today, we're diving into a really ambitious plan to transform an entire continent's economy, shifting away from just exporting raw materials to becoming a global manufacturing powerhouse. Let's get into it. So to really get why this new vision is so important, we have to start with the core challenge Africa has been up against for a long, long time. It's often called the commodity conundrum, this deep economic dependence that has pretty much shaped the continent's fortunes for better or often for worse. And that really begs the question, right? Why is an economy built on just selling raw stuff like crude oil, copper, or cocoa beans so limiting? I mean, on the surface, it sounds profitable, but it creates this major vulnerability to the ups and downs of the global market, which can totally derail any plans for development. And this chart, wow, it just lays it bare. Over 60% of the continent's exports are primary commodities. What that means is that entire national economies are riding a price roller coaster they can't control. So when the price of copper suddenly tanks, government budgets are thrown into chaos. And that makes long-term planning for things like schools and hospitals incredibly difficult. The direct result of that is, well, it puts a ceiling on growth. Just shipping out raw materials doesn't create a lot of complex, high-paying jobs. Think about it this way. Instead of just shipping out cocoa beans, what if you were processing them into chocolate bars right there? That one step, adding value, creates factory jobs, logistics jobs, marketing jobs, and you get to keep a much bigger slice of the final price. Without that, economies can get stuck. And this chart really puts that challenge into perspective. Look at sub-Saharan Africa. Manufacturing makes up less than 12% of the whole economy. Now compare that to emerging Asia, where it's over 25%. That gap, it's not just a number on a chart. It represents a massive untapped opportunity for jobs, for innovation, and for real economic transformation. Okay, so we've laid out the problem, but just talking about a problem isn't enough, is it? The great news is there's a proven strategy for this exact kind of economic shift. It's a path that has successfully lifted other regions, think South Korea or Taiwan, out of similar situations and into real prosperity. And that strategy is called export-led industrialization. It's a really powerful idea when you break it down. Instead of just selling your raw materials to other countries, you build your own factories. You process those materials into finished value-added products, and then you sell those to the world at a much higher price. And the benefits of making this switch are just huge. For starters, you create stable, quality jobs for a massive and growing youth population, which is Africa's greatest asset. You bring in more reliable foreign currency, plus competing on a stage forces your industries to get smarter, more innovative, more productive, and it naturally gets neighboring countries to trade and work together more. It's a win-win-win. So the vision is crystal clear, but how do you actually make it happen? It's not magic, right? It takes a very deliberate, very focused plan. So here it is, the 5-point roadmap that economic leaders are putting forward. This is basically the blueprint. First up, trade facilitation. That means making it faster, cheaper to move goods across borders by cutting tape and upgrading ports. Second, a smart industrial policy. You don't try to do everything at once, you strategically pick and support industries where you already have an advantage. Third, technology adoption, making sure factories are ready for the digital age. Fourth is skills development, investing in technical schools to build a workforce for modern manufacturing. And finally, investment, making sure businesses can actually get the money they need to grow. Every single piece is crucial. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the scale of this whole thing. This isn't about small tweaks. The goal is a fundamental change in what Africa makes and what it sells to the rest of the world. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, this all sounds great, but why now? What makes this moment different? Well, the answer is a massive development that is basically a supercharger for this whole vision. The African Continental Free Trade Area, or the AFCFTA. What the AFCFTA does is create a single, unified market of 1.4 billion people. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is one of the largest free trade areas on the entire planet. And it gives new African manufacturers a massive home market to sell to while they get ready to compete globally. And because of that, the potential is just staggering. Projections are showing that trade between African countries could shoot up by over 80% by 2035. This agreement is literally designed to set off a boom in trade within the continent itself. This slide really shows you the before and after. We're going from a continent of 54 smaller, separate markets with tons of trade barriers between them to a single economic space. This suddenly makes it possible to build complex supply chains across the region, where, say, one country manufactures textiles and another assembles them into clothing for export. That kind of thing was just a nightmare before. So the plan is in place, and the opportunity is absolutely historic. Now comes the crucial part, turning all of this incredible potential into real action on the ground. And make no mistake, this isn't just theory. Leaders are focusing on very specific, concrete outcomes. They're hammering out clear policy recommendations to speed this whole process up. They're identifying high-potential sectors, like agribusiness or pharmaceuticals, to really get behind first. And, crucially, they're building much stronger partnerships between governments and companies that will actually, build the factories and create the jobs. Which brings us to this final, really powerful question. You've got a clear roadmap. You've got the world's youngest and fastest growing workforce. And now you have a total game changer in the free trade area. All the ingredients are there. Now the journey is ambitious, no doubt about it, but the potential is undeniable. Can Africa become the world's next great factory? The next decade is going to give us the answer. For decades, the story about Africa's economy has been about its vast natural resources. But
Thank you. So, participants, we have heard the story. So here the borderline is that Africa, we import more than we export. And also we trade less among ourselves than the rest of the world. For instance, the intertrade within Africa is less than 15%, while Africa and Asia is around 60% and Europe around 70%. From the discussions yesterday also we had some of the issues that are needed to be done. And in one of the presentations, the theme was quite clear that sustainability is about self-development. And I must add that it is self-development in as much as it is in harmony with the entire context, the entire ecosystem. We also understand that Africa is not short of the process, because everyone now is looking at Africa like the way a group of young men is looking at a beautiful lady. And also, we understand that Africa is not short of people. We are close to 1.5 billion people. But given that we are still caught up in that kind of cycle, maybe to start, where do you think we are not having it right? And in this case, I would like to invite Dr. Olomi maybe to kickstart this discussion. From there, if I could have another mic, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning again. So I would like to start with the statement that Africa has a lot of resources, but we have not performed that well in terms of exports. And that is because resources alone cannot become capability that is a strong basis for value-added exports. Enterprise capabilities and resources which are below the ground, and also resources like our very good strategic location, our climate, and so forth. So those are there, but as I was saying this morning, the fundamentals of development are actually soft things, including the people, human capital, including institutions. And we need to focus a lot. We need to protect our resources, but focus very strongly on building the foundations for development, which will also provide a strong basis for competitiveness. So entrepreneurial capability, if you look around, in the last survey, only 4% of businesses in this country were registered, and only 11% had a business license. So we are talking about an economy which is largely informal. And we are talking of an economy where we have not developed strong entrepreneurial and managerial capacities. So we need to invest in that base. And then we need to also invest in things like quality. We have quality standards, but we need quality conscious producers. People who always focus on producing something that is of high quality. But the enabling environment is also a big challenge, because in order to be competitive, you need to produce competitively. That means you need to have affordable capital, but also quality infrastructure, which reduces the logistics and other costs. And also, very importantly, a friendly and predictable policy environment, including fiscal policy. So we need to, and these are the things that will even invite more medium, large-scale investors from Tanzania and from abroad to invest in this space. And here I would want to emphasize very important managerial capacity. And we often look at developing managerial capacity as only coming from training. But actually, if you look at the best performing managers now in Tanzania, they were not produced by training institutions. The training institution only provide a base. But by working in well-managed corporate organizations, they have grown from junior officers to middle-level officers, some of them to very powerful CEOs. So we need to invest in building these soft things, capabilities, human capital capabilities, but also the policy environment that will attract and retain investors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Olomi. Maybe in the same line, I would like to pose another question to Mr. Michael Boma from the Ministry of Industry and Trade. That in our case, Tanzania is a member of several regional and international bodies. We are a member of SADC. We are a member of African Free Trade Area and the East African Community, just to mention a few. But still, we can see that we are not doing that much in terms of exportation. Maybe what are your take on this, and moving forward, what do you think maybe could be the strategy?
Well, thank you, Dr. Tumaini. As you said earlier, I'm Michael Matthias Boma from the Ministry of Industry and Trade. I am from the Department of Small and Medium Enterprises, the SME. As to that, you know, economic is somehow a war, you understand? We are trying so much as the government to get into these integrations, economic integrations, but most of these integrations, they are countries. They have economic set of plans. They would not want us to win more. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like this. You can find sometimes between our borders, we have some conflicts. For example, borders of Tanzania and Kenya, where you find some of our traders are sending some commodities there and they get banned. But what does the government do to help these small and medium enterprises? They get into conflict resolutions. Last month we had a regional economical meeting in Dar es Salaam, and our secretary was there. We had a inter meeting with the Kenyan secretaries, so as to solve these all conflicts between the countries. But what is going on, does our communities or the citizens know about the way the government is helping them? Do they take advantage of this East African community integration so as they can go there? We have some subsidies for them. We help them in case of the infrastructure, as one of our members said. So what we do, we normally investing in infrastructure. Now you can find there's roads built from Dar es Salaam directly to Kenya, or maybe in Uganda. Now you can see we have the SGR. We help them with that, how far they can track their commodities. If I'm not mistaken, you can see also we are supporting them through loans. For example, in SMEs, we have a special fund. It's called the NEDIF, if you've heard about it. So SMEs can be given up to 5 million without even having collateral damages. This is all what the government is doing to help them. But also we have special enforcement on proving their qualities. Like you heard yesterday, the Tanzania Bureau of Standards is doing a lot to help the MSMEs to give them qualities, to assure them they can do international businesses. And why do we have to do it? We are doing it because if our government exports more, we'll have more income in terms of USDs. And if you read about economics, there's comparative advantage and superative advantages we get as the government, as the Tanzanian nation. So there's a lot to be done. Now we have a special air bus that is carrying out our commodities. You can find from Mwanza, maybe someone is doing fishing in Mwanza. The Tanzanian government has bought a special facility to export these fishes, and so many others. In Arusha, maybe flower business, the government has bought a special facility through the Air Tanzania. Now, does all the MSMEs knows about it? No, because sometimes politics interferes. If the government is doing something for the people, now politics intervenes. People, they don't know why this is being bought. A lot of money is invested by the government. So I think we have a special place to win more. What we need to do is to keep on educating more of our people, give them education on what are the things that the government have given them, like these infrastructures. Why are they? We enhance them. We invest in human capital. Now, the College of Business Education is under the Ministry of Industry and Trade. What do? We urge the college to create special courses, long-term and short-term, that can help our MSMEs to read more and have this international market ideology. Now, in our department also, we created a special portal for MSMEs. It's going to be launched somehow soon. So as these MSMEs can be registered there, they can see all the external markets. Now, also in the ministry, we have like WRB, you know about it, huh? All these farmers, they have their crops, they get into one facility, a stock facility, you keep it there for some time, keep it professional, the quality standard and everything is being monitored by the government. And again, when we find there's international market, we host auctions. This also helps in winning the international business. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. And you have talked a lot about the small businesses, but also concluded the role of CBE in working with the ministry to champion export-led kind of economy. So this goes to Professor Mjema now as being a leader in the academic institution for quite a long time. And based on your experience and even your presentation about the challenges facing academic institutions, where do you think we stand in this context, export-led economy? We have been hearing about academic institutions are not well linked with the market. Also, academic institutions should not be silos, they should be connected to the outside world and the industry in general. So what do you make out of that?
Thank you for that. Myself, I'll start from where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong before suggesting what to be done? First, we need to change the consumption behavior of our people. Our people are designed to like imported things compared to ours. So in that kind of situation, our industry, local industry, will never grow. Even when look here, most of the people are wearing shoes from China. While we have a local manufacturer, very good, the Whistle company, the Prisons, and the pure leather. Myself, I'm wearing the Whistle. Yeah, this is from Whistle. Yes, it is true. Because I decided that always I'll consume the local manufactured goods. So once you give them opportunity, then I will say that the focus should be first to the local market. So we create a great market for the local to make them improve their quality. Because once they're consumed locally, we can see where the problem is. Go to parties for these big shots. You'll find the beer from Windhoek, but we have a very good beer from Tanzania. Why people are consuming imported beer compared to the Tanzanian beers? We have good wine here from Dodoma. Why people are preferring South African wine or so compared to Dodoma wine? So it means that the first thing is to deal with the mind of the people to consume locally produced things. It means that there must be a campaign to improve the consumer behavior and to make sure the people accept their product, that is the way to make sure our industry are growing and are improving the quality. If we have a problem, we tell them, we like your beer, but it has this and this particular problem. I like your shoes, but it has this and this particular problem. So in the way, as they continue to improve, they'll reach a certain level to be able to export. Because you cannot export substandard goods. You remember when China started to export things, it is only when they have already saturated the internal market. Even after that, for example, when they started with these phones, the Techno whatsoever, they are not a good quality. But right now, because they've already improved, they can compete even with the other international telephone manufacturer. But what they started is from the internal. So it means that as an education system, our CBE, and the government in that aspect, we must inform people why we should focus in using our locally manufactured product so that to improve the quality before sending them abroad. Because if we send something, you export something but substandard, we have already lost the market. And once you lose the market, it is very difficult to go afresh. So we should, after reaching a certain level of quality and also quantity, it is only when you can be able to go to the international market. But with the MCME, which we have right now, it is very difficult to go to the international market. Let's first build the internal capacity in terms of quality and quantity before we embark to the international market. That is my contribution.
Thank you, Professor Mjema. And also thank you for showing an example of eating home manufactured products. But we have a big challenge, and that is pointing that our education also should also focus in building attitude to people value our own products. But again, we have this kind of attitude, I don't know, attitude or culture that imported products are of superior quality than the internal quality. And here we have Candida from TBS. First of all, what do you make from that statement that exported products, imported products, Professor Mjema was talking about alcohol, etc. TBS, what is your role in capacitating our capacity to be able to manufacture, not only for domestic, but also for export?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I would like to say that at all levels, being national, regional, or international, the basis for accepting or rejecting products that is imported or domestically manufactured is standards. So standards is the tool that prescribe what are the quality, what are the safety, and what are the performance requirements for each and every type of products being imported or locally made. So the government has created a conducive environment for business in terms of setting quality infrastructures, in terms of laws, regulations, standards, and the regulatory authorities that oversee all these issues. Here we can see that there is a role that has to be played by each and every part along the chain. The government has done its part, has set a conducive environment for business in terms of many aspects, but also the manufacturers have to take advantage of the available opportunities. And in this case, the concept that imported goods seems to be superior compared to domestic products is just a mentality. For me, I'll say that's not true, because all the goods are guided by the requirements stipulated in standards. We have national standards, we have regional standards, we have international standards, such as those developed by International Standards Organization, ISO, Codex Alimentarius Commission, and the regional standards. And in this case, the goods which are produced in this country, within the country, have to comply with the requirements of national standards. And the national standards are either derived from regional harmonized standards or the international standards. So the requirements are just the same, For instance, if you take, let's say, a water, being manufactured in Tanzania, or in other countries, in Africa, in Europe, or America, the taste will be the same because they all are manufactured under same requirements of standard. So even the comfort comply with the requirements of standard, but also all goods which are traded or manufactured and traded within the country also comply with the requirements of the standard. So the system is in place that ensure that imported and domestic manufactured goods are all in line with the requirements of applicable standard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just 1 minute before we proceed with the other.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Doctor, I wanted to add something very important. This year on July, Tantrade through Sabasaba, they hosted these exhibitions, industrial exhibitions. So they had this special slogan, made in Tanzania. And this slogan was championed by the president herself. So that one gives you a keynote to remember that made in Tanzania is a product. And again, the government is building these special industrial clusters and also the EPZDA areas where all Tanzanian industries, they produce some goods in some one area, they can get all the certifications, they can get all the quality managed in that area, and then these are the special areas for exportations. You understand? So also if you go into the national parks, there is Tanzania unforgettable slogans. All these slogans helps you to remember that the Tanzania products are very good, you can use them. Yeah. And also the government also is imposing some strict taxes for just to give these Tanzanian products to get more markets outside. These all are the initiatives that are being done by the Tanzanian government to help only our products. That's what I wanted to add more.
Okay, thank you very much. We have heard so far good strategies and maybe some shortcomings from different areas. But we understand that for this to be successful, we need some kind of peace of mind, and a state where everyone can participate fully in social and economic activities. And we also understand that Africa is facing a critical problem of insecurity, among others. So I would like to welcome Dr. Birham Tereda, being coming from Ethiopia. We understand, and it is unfortunate of what Ethiopia has been going on for quite a long time. But from that experience of conflict, internal conflict, and even regional and international conflicts, what do you think is the main cause, and how can we move out of that as a continent?
Okay, thank you very much. As you know, peace and security is very essential for each and everything. We Africans, especially, or specifically Ethiopians, face such challenges. There is regional instability because of different reasons. For example, there is some attitudinal difference between different target group, and there is also political parties. It can get a power through without dialoguing with the concerned body, and other interrelated, because of other interrelated issue, we may face such basic challenge. Because of this, we are unable to utilize the available resources in a properly manner. So what shall we do? So how can we minimize such conflict, especially within the region? Just, it's better to have inclusive dialogue with different political parties. There are different political parties. So those political parties should have common understanding about the economic integration of our country with other African countries. So currently our leading governments can propose such basic, or our government can have a plan to have a dialogue with different political parties for the purpose of what, creating unification between or among Ethiopians. So, in order to utilize our available resource in a proper manner, just unification is very essential. It's better to stabilize, or it's better to have peace and security between among the region. So, our government can take such remedial to resolve such conflicts among the regions. So I think what I have by my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Zreda, you talked about the conflicts which in most cases are connected to natural resources. And that they are not merely conflict, but they are naturally driven, natural resources-based conflicts. And in our panel, we have a professor of natural resource governance, Professor Irmeli. She has done quite a lot in that area, especially from the angle of collaboration and inclusion. Maybe Irmeli, from your experience, from different cases that at least you have studied, where do you think we are doing that much good to be able to contain these conflicts, starting from the level of household even to the international levels?
That's a very good question, because that's what we are also in Finland, that where comes this different role? Like, you know, what comes governance, it's multi-layered, and these layers have a different role.
Conflicts,
and what we are calling that's other layers of the governance, they are washing their hands out of those situations. And it also ruins not only these local actors there which are trying to solve conflict situations, but it also ruins the relationships between these different countries, and it also ruins the possibilities of these countries to create the long-term trust between the international partners. And so I see that there in the presentation there was the competing and how to get access to the international markets, for example. I would rather talk about the partnerships, how to create that type of partnerships and create the long-term trust between the international partners. And I don't think that you are, for example, able to compete with companies, for example, in Asia. Like we are struggling in Finland, very similar. We are the small nation, we are the actually, we are also very much dependent of the natural resources when it comes to the trade. And we are also struggling that not to be just selling the natural resources, but actually creating the value adding and creating the partnerships, for example, with Asian countries. And one of the examples what I would like to give you is that these partnerships are often based on the individual relationships, company to company, leaders of these companies, but also in our case, in very recently, the municipality where I live, called Joensuu, the municipality actually signed a trade agreement between the other municipality in Japan. It wasn't facilitated by the government, it was actually facilitated by these two municipalities, completely in the different of the globe. And this shows that we cannot always rely on the governments or the diplomats to create these type of trade relationships. Of course, they are important to give the structures, but this type of how the way individual relationships and the partnerships between the companies or the municipalities, that gives the opportunities to create the long-lasting partnerships. And to finding this type of new innovative ways, for example, what comes to the utilizing the natural resources, creating the value addings in natural resources, it's very important. And it's what we previously, at this morning, there was this discussion of the innovations, that what is actually the innovations and how to support this type of innovative environments, for example, the small scale and middle scale companies. And I think that that's also something what I would like to see the more Tanzanian companies to coming to Finland and creating that type of partnership. Just taking the contact, for example, our municipality. We have the so-called business Joensuu, which is it's an innovation hub which supports the different countries to come to our municipality and let's say Mafinga could create that type of business hub and directly contact to the municipalities, maybe in Sweden or Denmark or Finland, and not expecting that there is always the government which facilitates these processes.
Thank you, Irma, for bringing up the issues of natural resource conflicts, linking it with how collaborative processes are important. And linking your talk with Tereda, we also see that these conflicts, they end up in household. And in that case, we cannot forget to acknowledge the role of women, because in Africa we say that behind every success there is a woman. And in this case, I would like to pose a question to Magambo, not because she is already a woman, but because I would like to, maybe if you could highlight more about how do these conflicts and the solutions to solving them end up perpetuating the crisis in the households, which itself is like the engine of everything.
Thank you, Dr. Tumaini. Talking of women in our agenda, I will take it back to the impact on production. As we all know that production is a foundation of export. So if you read Economic Survey of 2024, we informed that women take large share of production workforce, especially in agriculture, light manufacturing, and informal sector. So when women are not able to fully participate in production, it trickles down to the export, because we cannot export if we have not produced enough. Maybe what we could say is that the agenda for women should not just be a social goal, but rather a competitive goal. So most of the time when you talk of women in inclusion, we normally perceive that as simply a social goal. But including women in the production system or in the export business is not just a social goal. Be a competitive strategy to achieve what we want to achieve. Again, when coming back to what Professor has said here, the resource conflict and all that, all these create a gender gap in terms of land, in terms of finances to women, which equally also impact their production capacity. So maybe it's a call that we should give a different perspective of the role of women in our agenda to a more competitive strategy to achieve the inclusion that we really dream about. The World Bank Development Index 2023 reported that women, if women had this same access to resources like men, our production would increase to about 20 to 30%. So which is simply a very large impact. So if we all transform that perspective, I believe when women take full participation, take full charge in the agenda of export-led, in the agenda of industrialization, production, in some time it will be a lived dream that we really want to achieve. Thank you.
Asante sana. So, dear participants and the audience, we have covered one round of questions. So now I would like to pose it a question whereby now anybody can be free to maybe to answer and maybe reflect back on what you heard from your fellow panelists. And the first one is about industrialization. When we are talking about export-led, basically we are talking about industrialization. It's about moving from raw materials to semi-processed or to finished products. But in that context, we can see these geopolitical business conflicts. For instance, we can see with the Trump, make America again, etc., etc. So where do you think, in this case, Africa stands when we talk about industrialization, given this global competition that we currently have? What should be our strategy? Because it is like an elephant walking with, as yesterday we had with the Sungura. Thank you. Professor Mjem.
Yeah. First, we needed to have strong institutions. Because right now, for example, Zambia does not want to export raw copper. Other countries will do that and it will be defeated. But if now Africa go as a unit and we put our institution that when we say that we are not going to export raw copper, then any country in Africa, it's like Congo, Zambia, and all this which have copper ore, we say that now, from now on, no more exporting this, and we have a strong institution which will ensure that if you do that, then we will take you out from the African institution. Then from there we'll be able to deal with the geopolitics. Or for example, we say now we are no longer going to export raw coffee beans, but instead we have to make sure that we process it so that we only export the processed coffee or cocoa. But if each country is going alone, we cannot deal with this geopolitics. Remember our fifth president said that economic war is a very dangerous war. If you go alone, they will eliminate you. Okay? So it means that to be able to industrialize and make sure that we don't export this raw material, but at least a semi-processed or processed product, we need to have a strong unit. And we need to have in most of these big areas where we need to stop this exporting of raw. For example, you can see Nigeria is producing oil. It is selling crude oil and imports processed oil. That is very shame. Say that everything should have a local content. If you could hear yesterday the ambassador of Tanzania, he said in Malaysia, they said everything must have a local content. If you want to bring anything here, it must be manufactured here in Malaysia. So it means that we need to have that kind of strong leadership before we are going to be able to go. Otherwise, with this kind of weak government which cannot protect itself, geopolitics will take us away, will not be able to fulfill our expectation for competitive industrialization for export. That is my idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe take something very different from what Professor Mjema said earlier, especially on the products that are made in Tanzania, just as a solution. As much as quality issues are in concern, also we have cost issue. If you ask Professor Mjema how much is the shoe, you know the story. So someone would feel better to get a Chinese cheaper shoe for almost 4 pairs or 5 pairs into Professor Mjema's a single pair. But where does this cost come from? Why are they expensive? It goes back to the production issue, to the infrastructure, the technologies that our local manufacturers are using. So they end up selling their products a little bit expensive compared to the imported products. So imported products remain cheaper to the community. So I think if we need to really incentivize our people to consume our local products, we should go back to the grassroots. Why are they too expensive despite of their quality? look at the furnitures that we are using. We have so good Mninga furnitures made in Tanzania, but how many can afford such furnitures in our homes? So we end up purchase the imported, which probably are not durable, but we are ready to do the changing after some time, but because we cannot afford today to get the expensive or the durable locally made products in Tanzania. So I think we should go back to the roots and make our products also affordable and quality, the technology, the finishing, and whatsoever that would make a big change. Thank you.
Irmeli, you wanted to?
Yes, relation to this trade relationships and global politics and the geopolitical situation in globally, Finland learned the lessons. Like we were very dependent with the trade with the Russia, and when the war started, it was really a collapse for our economy. And I think that that is something what is also important, that every country to learn that lesson, that if you are very dependent of the certain countries, and then if something happens, it's actually really impacting your markets. So once you have a trade relationships and partnerships with the globally, and you have a different type of partners, it also gives you the security. It gives you the resilience for this type of global instabilities, what we are living. But there is still the one issue is the security. And these type of trade relationships, what you are building globally now, if the other countries are not able to trust that there is this peace, for example, what happened now, how easily it can be, you can lose the trust in these relationships with your trade partners. If they are not trusting that harbors are open, that the harbor is functioning, and there is the flights between. So it's actually impacting for the long term. It's very difficult, it's very easy to break the trust, but it's very difficult to build the trust again. And that's something which in this current situation, in not only here in Tanzania, but also in Finland, we are, most likely we are not gonna be in the same situation ever anymore, at least in our generation. So you see that globally these trade relationships are always based on the trust.
Thank you. Dr. Olomi, you talked about improving our exports, but even our intra-trade. It seems like African countries are competing among themselves against the unknown. We are not leveraging on the competitive advantage that we have, so that we can become markets and customers for each other. So what would you at least talk about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, it's true that we are competing, although there are some areas where we have comparative advantages among ourselves, so there is room for trade. But there is a challenge that for most of us, the scale of production is still low. And you know, one of the reasons you will find some very cheap products in the market is because when you can produce at scale, you can do what is called variable cost pricing. Because if you are producing massively, let's say in China or in any country, and if you can recover your fixed costs in your domestic market, when you export, you do not need to recover the full costs. You only need to cover the variable cost and then your profit. So it becomes very easy for them to be price competitive in foreign markets. So part of what we have to learn to do also is to promote SMEs, etc., but also to promote scale, businesses that operate at a big scale, like now Dangote is doing. Of course, it's a process. Now, in order for us to promote intra-African trade, I cannot speak so broadly about Africa, but for Tanzania, we need to do market intelligence. We need to have very good market intelligence for the international market. And now when we are talking about the international market, it's not only export market, because even here, we are competing globally, because the products are coming here. So we are competing with the products from all over the place. So even here, you have to compete internationally. But we have to have good market intelligence. Where can we be competitive? Which value chains? Which markets? What capabilities do we need to be competitive in those markets? And here we are talking about African markets. This is what we are talking about. So it might be that in Egypt, for example, or somewhere in Ghana, or there are certain needs that we can meet from Tanzania very competitively. But do we know them? Do we have evidence? Do our business people, do our companies know those opportunities? And there could be also products that, for one reason or another, it can be very difficult for us to compete. And therefore, we can de-emphasize those. But also, when we have good market intelligence, what we can do with it is make deals. You know, the global trade governance mechanism, WTO, is like now collapsing because of people like Trump. So in their place, maybe you'll have these regional blocs, which are not very strong, especially in case of Africa. But also there are bilateral deals, which is what Trump is promoting. So we also need to take advantage of those bilateral deals with African countries, but also with countries outside Africa, where we see we have a clear competitive advantage, and where basically probably we also have trust, we have built some relationship, and where we see they can also benefit from trading with us, either with the same product or in another commodity. We can make deals bilaterally. But that requires good, deep information, which requires strong market intelligence. So we need to invest in market intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Olomi. I think Irmeli will leave us because she has other engagements. Irmeli, thank you very much for participating in this discussion. So maybe before Dr. Michael also give his views, maybe when we are talking, I would also like to talk about non-tariff barriers. And also if you could talk about multilateral and bilateral agreements and the way they are likely to also affect our industrialization strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tumaini. As I said earlier, we have international integrations that we enter, like AFTA. This helps us in doing international businesses. But Tanzania is also investing a lot in economic democracy. This one tells all the embassies to do researches in terms of innovations that are found abroad. And they can tell our government that, look here, there's this opportunity. For example, in UAE, we are exporting a lot of meats from Tanzania. That is because of our embassies. Again, you spoke about, come again, when
Bilateral and multilateral agreements and the way they are likely to affect our industrialization strategy.
Yeah. So for sure, we have to be very keen to learn about all these bilateral and multilateral agreements, because sometimes you may find in some countries there is trade embargoes. You cannot send some of the products. For example, in Tanzania and Kenya, they were buying a lot of maize, except of buying finished product. So the government earlier, the late government, Mr. Magufuli, has banned, he banned the exportation of maize. Because if you export maize, they will have the ugali, but also they can get food for their chickens and everything else. So some of them we enter, some of them we don't enter. They do research, they know what will benefit our country. If it benefits us, we enter into that multilateral. If it does not benefit us, we hold on to that.
Okay, so I would like to have one more question before we open the floor to ask questions. And maybe our IT team could also share the link through which people can send their comments or questions. Yeah, we cannot talk about industrialization also without minding about climate change now, which is driving everything. So Africa is a continent where because we contribute very little in polluting the air, but we suffer the most from the consequences of climate change. So where do we think our political strategies, economic and social strategies should be placed to harness from this? I don't know who would like to go first. Yes, Professor Jim.
Yeah, as you said that climate change is causing most of these big manufacturing countries, China, America and Europe, but Africa will suffer more from that kind of climate change. The drought which is happening in a number of areas in Africa. But also Africa, we are among the largest producer of forest products. Okay. Now, how are we going to change this carbon effect? Do we take it seriously? Because other countries are gaining from the sale of this carbon product, but here in Tanzania, I don't think we are taking it more seriously. Tanzania, I think it have reserved almost 20% of its land as forests. Then how do we gain from that? Okay. So it means that whenever we talk about industrialization, we also have to talk about the clean energy. And the clean energy, it will help us also to go to industrialization without being affecting the climate change because of using other technologies. Because, for example, Tanzania, we have sufficient coal, but people are still using charcoal. Why? We have coal, but people are still using charcoal. We have sufficient electricity right now, but perhaps the price of the equipment does not allow most people to use electrical stoves. Can we go to industrialization for manufacturing cheaper electrical stove, cheaper gas stove, which can use our natural gas, etc., in order to avoid this particular problem of climate change? I pose a question upon question. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Another one would like to react on that. The role of climate change.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to share an example of how we need to be more sensitive to climate change. I participated in a project that was supporting a number of education institutions. And in the process, I learned that the design of a building and its orientation can have a very big impact on energy use and the other factors which are related to climate change. So there is a technology on how you orient a building, on how you design the building so that it is more climate resilient. And what surprised me after becoming aware is that I'm learning now as I go through various institutions that the structures that are being built now are less climate resilient than structures that were built even 50 years ago. So when you look at the building, you see this building was built to be, I don't know about the orientation, but at least the structure, it requires less lighting, it requires less heating or less air conditioning. So it was built with that in mind. But now the structures we're building are not conscious of climate change. So I think that is an area that needs to be addressed. It seems the awareness and the appreciation at different levels, including the people who are designing maybe factories, building, it needs to be improved so that we embrace it as a culture, not something that is theoretical. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
So you can actually, as you go around, just observe the buildings that were constructed in the past, let's say 50 years go back, and the buildings that were designed a few years kuja mbele. You will find that the buildings of the past are more climate resilient.
So if there's no another contribution, maybe I can now start reading some of the questions. So the first one goes to Dr. Michael from the Ministry of Industry and Trade. How can you help the flowers farmers in Arusha to join heads together so that they can win the market in Europe? As of now, Kenyans dominate the markets because of their unity. This is a question from the floor. Maybe I will read another one, and this goes to Professor Mjema. As Professor Mjema said, we are not changing, if we are not changing our consumption behavior, we'll continue to import from abroad. All tires in Tanzania are imported, while we had General Tire here. Batteries of our vehicles, medicines, sugar, etc., all are imported. Maybe we start with Mr. Michael, Dr. Michael.
I'm just Mr. Michael. So the flower market in Arusha is a big market, and mostly they are for exported. So, as I said earlier, the government is investing a lot in economic diplomacy. Our embassies are there to do research and find all the external markets that are found in Britain. And once they find it, they share back to our country through our ministry, the foreign ministry. And then we share internally, and then we can find out how much is needed in Britain, for example. So we give these farmers. But you know, this flower plantations is being owned by the international farmers. There are some settlers there in Arusha. They are farming flowers. So themselves also, they do know where they can send and sell. But what we do, we assure them with all the infrastructures they need For example, as I said earlier, the government has bought an Airbus to just export easily from Arusha to wherever the country they need to export, but also the building of the giving subsidies to them. For example, if they need these fertilizers and everything, it's easier for them to get. Also, we did some changes in the water irrigation laws and regulations about irrigation process to help them just to move on with their business. So the government is doing everything possible to help all these farmers to gain the external markets.
Thank you. Professor Mjema, yours was a comment, but maybe if you have something about it.
Okay, somebody say we're talking that we have to change the behavior. What about the car tires that we are importing on the turn and you have general tire? I said those things which we can be able to manufacture right now in Tanzania is where we have to change the behavior consumption. That we have local beers, but people prefer imported beer compared to local beer. Shoe companies, but people prefer imported shoes compared to Tanzania. In the case of General Tire, first the technology is old one. Right now they say it is not economical to produce anymore with the current machinery which are at the General Tire there. But also, all those rubber plantation are no longer there. You know, Tanzania was producing rubber. So to be able to produce the tires, you need the rubber. So it means that you can have an industry here, but you have to import the raw material from to export raw material, but to manufacture. But in the areas where we don't have raw material, we don't have rubber plantation anymore. There was somewhere in Itanga, but all of them are dead. The industry is dead, and right now to start a new tire manufacturing, it is still a long way to go. Importation of sugar, I think that was a scandal, because if you remember, Mr. Mpina tried to show that we had sufficient sugar, but some people, in order to be able to get extra money, they pretended that we don't have sufficient sugar so that they can be able to import sugar. I can't comment on that, but because some people have shown that we have our interest of the capacity to produce sufficient sugar for our country and even export. But somehow there is a certain game which we need also to cap that kind of game. That's why I said we need also strong institution to make sure that this is the capacity of Mtibwa, Kagera sugar. We have a number of sugar plantation in Tanzania. Are they not really sufficient to produce sufficient sugar for Tanzania? It's a number of things to be checked on. That was the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a few questions on the screen. The first one is not very clear. Maybe if the person could rewrite it or ask it, maybe can be given the mic. Maybe the second one, it talks about the issues of standard. And I would like to invite Dr. Candida to reply.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it does the fact that there are many, yes, there are many international standards. There are a number of international standards, and Tanzania make use of that advantage by adapting or harmonizing those standards to make them the national standards. That is to say, despite there are many international standards nowadays, adopted by any country which thinks that it can suit its requirements. So in such cases, the same standard can be adopted by different countries, and that provides advantage for international trade, because it will provide a unified requirements for particular type of products for which those standards have been harmonized. Yeah.
Thank you. The second one goes to CPA Magambo. How can we control the importation so as to reduce cost of local products?
Thank you. I think controlling importation should be done with care. If our local products cannot suffice our needs, we cannot aggressively control importation. For those who went through economics in secondary school, we started being told there that if you want to improve the balance of payment and balance of trade, we need to control importation so that we protect our local industries. But here we are today, the importation agenda is still there. So the message is, I think we should start with reducing costs before we start controlling importation. So once our products becomes more affordable and also improve in terms of quality, so basically the importation need will cease or at least be reduced. So as for me, I would say we should start with reducing cost of our local products, use different measures from what Professor Lomi said, the economies of scale, the mass production, that will enable our local products being priced at a variable cost. So if that is achieved, it will trickle down to importation control. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The following questions, I can answer it briefly. After this forum, we will develop a number of documents, because the question is asking to what extent are the conclusion and ideas from these intellectual discussions adopted by the government. So after this conference, we will prepare a book of abstracts, a policy brief, which we will share with our ministry, but also we will also share with the other government officers, depending with the policy implications and recommendations. So, but on top of that, also we have a conference proceeding where we also put this in our repository so that scholars and other people can also access it. So again, we have something to do with control, the effect of neocolonialism in African export. Who is in a position to answer that? Colony Mamboleo. How can we control that?
Okay. Neocolonialism is the mechanism through which what we would say the former colonialists use to maintain their advantage of us in terms of, for example, we are supposed to be mainly producers of raw materials, which we export to be manufactured elsewhere, and then we import the manufactured goods. Now, the reality is this game is changing drastically because the factories have shifted and are still shifting from the former colonialists to East, to Asia. And hopefully they will come to Africa. They have actually, some of them have started coming to Africa from Asia. But there are certainly strategies for the more developed Western countries to try to maintain their superiority or control of technology, including intellectual property, for example, even over crops and various technologies. So indeed it is affecting us, but what we need to do is to also be a little bit more smart, because we have actually a lot of intellectual knowledge, intellectual property that we can monetize, including various types of medicines, including the talents of young people in ICT and other sectors. So we have to be more strong in building the capacities and the systems, the ecosystems, to support monetization of these technologies. Right now, for example, I know 2 doctors who are treating cancer, apparently very effectively. And it's not just cancer, it is also other diseases, other chronic diseases. So, but the mechanism to transit from, because they are producing the herbs, they are packaging, but they are doing it in a very crude way. And some of them are highly trained doctors. One of them is a professor, actually, of plant. So this is something it has a lot of potential even for export. But how you move now from doing it in a clinic, not in a backyard, I think they are now licensed, but they are doing it at that scale, to making it a product that you can export, and you can export at scale. You need to build those kind of ecosystems. But we have an opportunity now, if you are following what is happening. A lot of, for example, hardware products, tiles, aluminium, cement, many products of this kind are being produced here, not only for Tanzania, but also for the neighboring countries. So that's a huge opportunity for Tanzania. We need to create we need to create more space and take full advantage of that. And the only way to deal with what we call neo-colonialists is to build the capacities to take advantage of the opportunities and find ways of circumventing whatever barriers are there to commercialization of our innovations. Because there might be actors who would not want us to have, for example, to commercialize some of the innovations that I'm talking about. So we need to build the ecosystem to do so and create the environment, because the factories have migrated from Europe to Asia. Now from Asia they are looking for cheaper labor, for production areas closer to the market. And they are coming this way. So I don't think we need to worry, we just need to be vigilant, build the ecosystem, and attract businesses that are potentially coming from here. And when I'm talking about market intelligence, it is also finding more opportunities to attract businesses like the ones we are already attracting. Right now, you go to the coast region, there are hundreds of factories producing for Tanzania and the neighboring market. So we need to take more advantage of that. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Oloni, and also dear participants. Because of time, we cannot, will not be able to exhaust all the questions. But maybe one question that maybe could answer, that despite of the MOUs, why do we still have problems with the partner states? Maybe from the Ministry of Finance, from Industry and Trade. Just very quickly, please.
Memorandum of understanding that we have with the international sometimes does not guarantee that we should not have some problems because of interest of the nations. We should have a clear mindset that, as I once told you guys, there's economic wars around the world, not only in East Africa or in Africa, but around the world, there's economic wars. Each country is what wants to benefit much from the other. So, if we have MOU concerning agricultural products, for example, or horticultural products, that does not guarantee that that will be the main issue. But again, you can see if we are winning much from our partners, and they see we win much from them, then they benefit from us, they can impose some restrictions. For example, you see, if you read about the embargoes, there's some certain amount of product you can import into our country, just only to hinder you from importing much to them, making them a dump site. For products from China, for example, we import much from China, but sometimes they don't meet our standards because our traders, they go there, they want cheaper products, they come here to sell for a lot of prices, so that they can gain more. So you can understand, we have international memorandum of understanding doing business with China, but again, there is a problem of quality issues. There you can find TBS, they come up on you. That is the issue, so they have to understand.
Okay, we conclude from Madam.
Okay, talking of MOUs or bilateral agreements and multilateral agreements, take it as a marriage certificate. When you get married, you get the marriage certificate, but that certificate is not a guarantee that no conflicts are going to arise. It's how you handle them. So MOUs does not take off the probable conflicts or problems that are going to arise within the contracts, the agreements that you enter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, but we should also understand that the marriage certificate has no expiry date. So with that note, I would like to thank all members of the panel. Thank you very much for your contribution. And for the rest of the questions that have not been addressed here, we will accommodate them in our reports and be certain that every and each possible answer will be provided in our reports. So thank you very much, and back to MC.
All right. Please, can you wait? Discussants, please, can you wait? Can you wait? Yeah, just hold on. Yes. And please, Chairperson, can you join the team? Thank you very much, Chairperson and discussants, for a very good discussion. Our discussion has highlighted the potentials of Africa export-led economies. So let us all push for policies that support local industries and attract foreign investors for African economy. Now, I would like to lead the group or participants to congratulate the team, the chairperson and discussants, and you'll do as I instruct. So, here we go. I instruct, then you'll just do it. Please, get ready. All participants, get ready to congratulate the team and the chairperson. 3 big to the chairperson. Let's go with this order. Let's go. 3 big, the chairperson. 3 big to discussants. 1 big to all of us. Thank you very much. Now, before they leave the stage, we would like to have a picture of the chairperson on all discussants. Please, cameraman, can you take a picture? Yes? Ready? Ready? All right, okay. Thank you very much. Now you can go. Okay, according to our timetable, now we disperse for panel presentations, and we take like just 1 hour, and every presenter knows the venue, and we will use the same venue we used yesterday, and we have group venue.